Toyota F101 1973. In 1971, the Japanese government prepared a report with which it addressed the country's leading enterprises. The essence of the message boiled down to a proposal to transfer industry from energy-intensive rails to science-intensive ones. Many were skeptical and even critical of such a message, but Toyota understood that without optimizing production and introducing modern technologies, leading positions in the world could not be achieved. In the wake of this quest for maximum efficiency, the F101 concept was born. The unusual F101 coupe, which debuted at the 20th Tokyo Motor Show in 1973, would have looked just as well at the 1975 Motor Show, and 77th, and other later years. Because the team of Japanese designers succeeded in an advanced silhouette that was beyond years. In the image of F101, you can find features of the projects of Anatoly Fedorovich Lapin, who painted the Porsche 928, the volumes of U. Benson's cars, like Ford Capri and Sierra, details of American and British sports cars from the late 60s, and the late 70s and even the early 80s. Years. In general, it turned out to be a real aesthetic fusion. Project F101 became a prequel to the second-generation Toyota Celica. By that time, the first generation had already been produced for 2 years and, admittedly, sold well. So big plans were laid on the second generation. But in the second half of that same 1973, when the prototype was presented, the world was stirred up by an energy crisis, which in no way affected Celica's life. It was American automakers who had to revise their plans in a hurry and teach multi-liter V8s not to swallow liters of gasoline, but only to sniff modestly. Toyota did not have such problems. The F101 has already been built for maximum efficiency. In every sense of the word. The body of the concept, blown in a wind tunnel, fully met the challenges of the time and worked for fuel efficiency. At the same time, the outlines of the car, combining straight lines with roundness, could not be successfully falling into the trends of future years. Probably, in those years, Toyota had a court-monk soothsayer who suggested to the Japanese which way to dig, otherwise it is difficult to explain such a combination of circumstances. Of course, not all F101 features were embodied in the second-generation serial Celica, which debuted in 1977. The concealed headlights of the concept have disappeared, which, fortunately, will be implemented in the third, fourth and fifth generations. The front end has ceased to resemble the muscle cars of the golden era of NASCAR, and the trunk lid has turned out to be quite traditional. Since the F101 was a concept car, and the main purpose of a concept car is to delight and surprise, it's surprised with a two-piece trunk lid. Something similar can be seen on the Tommaso Mangusta, with the only difference that the Tommaso has symmetrical hood parts, while Toyota's trunk does not. The meaning of this solution is as follows: if the driver needs to throw some small things into the trunk, such as a bag or backpack, he opens the smaller part, which is located on his side. Well, if you are planning a big trip, in this case, you can raise the section on the left. In addition, such a solution gives an additional stiffness bar with all the ensuing advantages. Although the concept was the prototype of a sports car, the engine was hardly sporty. In front of the 4.4-meter coupe, which the Japanese called the car of the future, was a carbureted 4-cylinder engine with a volume of 1968 cubic centimeters. A similar engine could be found on the Toyota Corona of those years. Its power reached 97 horsepower. The torque was fed to the rear axle through a 3-step automatic machine. The base of the F101 chassis was borrowed from the first-generation Celica. Both the front and rear suspension of the coupe were independent, and all the brakes were disc brakes. All this promised the car good handling, which, alas, no one could appreciate. Technically, the F101 and the second-generation Celica had little in common. At the same time, the reputation of not the driver's car itself was fixed for the second Celica. After 1973, the Tokyo Motor Show began to be held every 2 years. And the United States, and other countries, tasted the taste of Japanese cars, which were both economical and reliable. The F101 four-seater coupe can hardly be said to have revolutionized or made a difference for Toyota, but it clearly deserves more attention than it gets. If only for the reason that with all its appearance and content, the concept was preparing motorists for a new era, which not everyone expected.